Okay. Testing. Good morning. Welcome to today's masterclass. Today's our topic is Arcserve SaaS Backup. I'm Ken, Principal Consultant for Arcserve. Arcserve SaaS Backup is our new portfolio handling SaaS application backup. Arcserve SaaS Backup is powered by Keepit. We don't actually develop it, but we OEM from Keepit. So it's powered by Keepit. It is one platform for the most popular SaaS application like your Microsoft M365, Google Workspace, Azure AD, Salesforce, and Microsoft Dynamics 365. With a single interface itself, it gives you a unified approach, backing up all this important SaaS application with multiple methods of recovering and restoring method. Okay, this is what I'm going to share with you today. One of the biggest questions that we always ask is that, do I really need to protect my SaaS data? Shouldn't my provider help me to protect my data since I render this service to them? So, but the answer is actually yes, you need in the SaaS environment itself, right? User data is actually users' own responsibility. This slide actually gives you a very quick glance on what is a SaaS backup, SaaS provider responsibility and the user responsibility. So in general, SaaS provider itself, right, is only providing you with the platform. They will manage your hardware, the software aspect of the application that you need running. But as a user, so as a user, right, we don't have to concern on how to maintain the system or how to provide a redundancy or handling the disaster recovery aspect of your application. So at least your application is always accessible. But the most important thing in the application itself actually is always your data. Okay, it's not really the system, but it's the data. These are not being protected. So the data can be corrupted, and it could be human error. It can be simply accidentally delete or replace a file. Or even if you're talking about what is the most common with our O365 here, with the autosave, I may not even able to get my version back because I renamed the file or etc. So another biggest problem are probably people. So employee tends to delete the data before they left. Okay, you also have insider threats. The malicious attack, hacking, delete of or modify of important data info before they left the company. Okay, so this is not really uncommon heard of, especially when the employee left in a bad terms. Okay, of course, you also there's also a lot of other attacks or data losses due to viruses, malware, ransomware attack, which all these are just a forever continuous threat. Based on the Gartner research, it also states that assuming SaaS application don't require backup is dangerous. Okay, so it's so the backup is important, and it's according to this research, it also states that by 2022, which is actually by end of this year, 70% of the organization were to certain extent will suffer some business disruption due to unrecovered data lost in their SaaS application. Okay, so we also hear and we also see statistics that in the last couple of years, reports on losing of SaaS data. Okay. Okay. So here, this slide is actually the source is from Aberdeen Group itself. It's actually talking about the percentage of reason of loss of the data losses. So it was found that the data loss scenario that we have experienced so far, right, 73% are really due to the human error. Okay, it's not the provider platform. We ourselves accidentally, just like what I mentioned earlier on, overwrite the data, or just that the administrator closed off the user account accidentally, your email account, for example. Okay, there are also threats from hacker and insider, and these threats are making up of the 20% of the data losses. SaaS application typically have third-party plugin. Okay, closest example is our that we experience is actually the synchronization problem. I think most of us have at some point, right, face some issue losing some email data or our OneDrive data, SharePoint, due to inconsistency between your multiple devices, your notebook, your tablet, your mobile. There are also third-party tools that doing bulk import of the data itself, update the data, etc., into your Salesforce. Okay, and the failure of the uploading or the update may cause data inconsistency or even loss of the data in the Salesforce itself or in your Dynamics 365. Okay, so all these problems from the third-party tools itself does cover the rest of the 7% of the reported data losses. So since there are so many different scenarios that contribute to the data loss with the SaaS application, question here is that when that happens, right, how can we actually recover the data? How many solutions do I need to put in place to protect the SaaS data? I have my email system, I have my Salesforce, okay, I have my Azure AD. Do I need 3 different solutions to actually protect all this important SaaS application? There are so many different SaaS applications. So the 2 most widely used itself, right, usage collaboration platform, nonetheless, will be the Microsoft M365 and Google Workspace. So most protection vendors, okay, focus on Microsoft M365. They'll protect the Exchange Online, they'll protect the OneDrive, the SharePoint, and to a certain extent, some can handle Microsoft Teams. Okay, it could be handle a limited of Microsoft Teams in which that it can do certain things, but it could not it cannot back up or restore the channel, etc. if you really intensively use your Microsoft Teams in the collaboration. Okay, so of course, this vendor itself may extend their ability to protect the Google Workspace, but it's not from the same interface because it was actually 2 separate solutions from the same vendor, etc. Okay, there's still a lot of missing piece. Okay, your Microsoft Azure, your Microsoft Dynamics 365 is running in Azure, and then that is Azure AD. Okay, so how about the AD protection? If there's something wrong with the AD, I accidentally change something in the AD itself, then obviously the problem itself will channel down to my application. How about Salesforce? A lot of organization critical information is residing in the Salesforce itself. Okay, and of course, it could be residing in your, they could be using the Dynamics 365. I also see a lot of requests coming in talking about how do I protect my Dynamics 365. It's getting some quite a lot of attention in the last last 2 years. Okay, here a lot of people actually asking for that. So we need the dedicated SaaS data protection itself that not just protect our M365, but the solution can also reach out to handle the Google Workspace, the Azure AD itself, the Salesforce, and as well as the Dynamics 365 because these are the top 5 SaaS application that most user is actually using. So this is what I'm going to share with you today, the Arcserve SaaS Backup. One interface itself that will allow you to actually address all these 5 SaaS applications. Before I talk about the software itself, let's look at what is in the backend. Okay, you go through you choose a SaaS vendor is because the SaaS backup provider, not just because what it can do in the backup. I have this feature A, I have that feature B, but the one important thing is how was the backend being set up in terms of the data center, how the system is being set up, and what can it offer you, because this is what is why you go for a SaaS provider, because you don't want to handle the hardware, the system aspect of the entire implementation. Okay, so as mentioned, Arcserve SaaS Backup is powered by Keepit, which is a very comprehensive and reliable SaaS backup provider. I'm impressed actually when I look at it. The data center, right, is located, there are 4 data centers, is located at UK, Denmark, Germany, Australia, and US. Okay, so each of the data centers have 2 sites. Okay, so it means that which geography it have 2 sites, and this data center itself, both data center at the site are running on active setup. Okay, so all the data are stored in immutable format. It is a worm format, so it can be rest assured that it guard against any possibility of data tampering. Okay, whether by user or it was being hit by ransomware attack. Okay, your data are safe, your backup data are safe. Keepit data center, right, leveraging on Equinix on the infrastructure for the data center itself, and but Keepit own the entire stack. Okay, so in terms of certification, Keepit have 4 ISO 27001 certification. It has a SOC compliance, it has the IPA compliance, it has the PCI. Okay, so this is the list of certification that what Keepit data center owns. Okay, next let's look at the building block of the SaaS backup itself. Okay, it's built with scalability, extensibility, unifiable, and cost efficient in mind. Okay, the platform is running on a hyper-converged architecture. So this is the backend. You can't see it, but this is what I'm going to share with you. We are actually the data center building block is based on the hyper-converged architecture. It uses a unique blockchain-based object store and the file system. Okay, and this is a blockchain write once, read many, which means that it is a worm technology. Okay, and like what I said, ensure that your data is safe. The platform is scaled both vertically and horizontally with redundancy to ensure the uptime itself. So with the active, basically you can, if I remember correctly, it's about 99.9999% of the uptime based on this building block. Okay, and Arcserve SaaS Backup is using API approach only. Okay, it doesn't use extensive use of any of the third-party code itself. So this will really eliminate the problem of complexity and also manual management when the SaaS application get an upgrade or updates. Okay, because we see a lot of traditional so-called approach of handling in for those, especially the M365 backup, all these things, when there's certain changes and then the backup also have certain problem which that it need to get updates. Okay, so Okay, and okay, so our system itself, right? Okay, also allows the data object to instantly accessibility to get instantly accessible. Okay, so when you do a search or when you do try to retrieve the data or this, you don't have to wait for the tape, which of course, if you say that you put a longer retention, if it's not residing in the tape. Okay, it's actually online, and it's not even in the cold storage. Okay, and that's why the system does provide you a very fast search engine for quick retrieval. So in terms of cost efficiency, the storage infra is we built with the extreme margin, because for our customer, for the SaaS backup itself, we give you the unlimited storage. Okay, our user do not get penalized or you have to be paid more if you actually require high retention, or forced to reduce the number of data retention to reduce the cost. Okay, because we have the unlimited storage and retention offered for the user for their subscription period. All right, so the building block of the SaaS backup architecture itself also complies with a 3-2-1 strategy. Okay, we talk about the 3-2-1 for on-premise. Okay, but for the SaaS backup provider, that is a question mark on how the SaaS backup provider actually handling it. So with Keepit, we are able to openly share with you that we do have a 3-2-1 backup strategy for all your data that is residing in our data center. So each data center has two sites, and configured with active site A and site B. So both sites are connected with a dedicated optical link. All the data are replicated between the sites using the dark fibers. There are no single point of failure in this architecture. So any single component, the building block, can be lost without affecting the entire operation. Any number of the full platform can also be deployed independent on one another for full isolation or scalability. Okay, that can be done anytime if we have a surge in demand for the system. The front-end nodes that provide use is the front-end node provided, right, is actually using a load balancer and able to add as needed to scale against. So in terms of the retrieving performance is an important factor. The internet components, okay, at the data center can also be scaled horizontally and vertically. Last but not least, as mentioned, data is the most important. Each location has 2 copies of the customer data. So rest assured that our user will have 4 copies of the data in total, because we have 2 sites, active. Okay, this really gives you the assurance that there's always at least a healthy copy of the data, even if there's certain hard disk failure or this thing which that you can't control. Okay, and you with this 4 copies of the data at 2 different sites, active. Okay, you have the healthy data set. So I would say this is the strongest testimony for Arcserve SaaS backup. Okay, in terms of your data resiliency. So when you are doing a researching, when you're evaluating a SaaS backup solution, right, try verify the architecture. Okay, whether it's based on single copy or is there a multiple copy. Okay, do you have to pay if that you need a multiple copy? Okay, for Arcserve SaaS, all this is just part of the architecture for all the backup hosting in the with the Arcserve SaaS backup. Okay, here is the high level of the backup architecture. So Arcserve SaaS backup connect to M365, SFDC, Dynamic D365, Google Workspace, all through API. Okay, and the connectivity and data in transit are secure using HTTPS. Okay, SSL. Using have the open authentication, the 2.0, HTTPS, SSL to secure the data in transit. All activity are logged in Audit Lock. Okay, I'm quite impressed on that. Later on, when I show you the demo, I'm very sure you will be impressed as well. Okay, data are backed up to the selected data center location. Okay, which that's for our location at this moment, the closest one is probably Australia. Okay, so with the infra in place, the data center can provide you a 99.9999. So it's a 4.9 up, it's a 6.9 uptime. Okay, so each location has two sides meeting a 3-2-1 strategy, and total 4 copy of the data. And you're able to perform very fast search across one or all the snapshot with a dedicated search engine. Okay, and there are multiple restore methods and alternate, whether to the original or to the alternate are provided. Okay, so this slide shows the role-based security, okay, of Arcserve backup. Most of the SaaS backup and cloud don't offer extensive kind of role-based security or provide very limited in terms of the role-based security. So Arcserve SaaS backup does have a granular rights like who can create, configure, modify, managing the backup, who can actually restore or import, even down to whether the restore can be an override or you can only do a rename restore, or you must restore to a separate folders. Okay, so in Arcserve SaaS backup itself, it has the strength to preview the data before you restore. Okay, it may also happen with a lot of other backup solution that you can view the files. Okay, so what's so great about that? But what I'm trying to tell you here is that with the role-based itself, you can actually took off this ability from the restore operator. You are not supposed to be able to view the important to view the data itself. Okay, so I'm the restore operator. I want to look at how much pay rise that my manager gives to my counterpart. I just go and look at all the backup itself. Okay, but with Arcserve backup, you can't do that. Okay, because you can actually set this granular rights who can actually do the preview of users' files. Okay, so there's also a very interesting feature in Arcserve backup, which is creating a share link, okay, for the restore mount point. Generally, the restoration is done by the administrator or the support, okay, who actually grant the rights. But user don't actually get to see, okay, the file folders for the restore all this. But with Arcserve backup, you can create a public link that allow to actually share it with the user and let them navigate through and do the restore, etc. Okay, and so with the outback role itself, you can actually limit who are the support personnel that's able to do that, because you don't want the support personnel to actually violating this capability and simply share a user folders out to somebody they're not supposed to. Okay, so the creating a share link is another granular rights that you can actually set in the Arcserve backup itself. Okay, so other outback role are just like job monitoring, who can view the audit log itself, who can configure the single sign-on, or who can create or edit or delete user. So those are pretty standard. So to ease the implementation of the outback role itself, there are predefined roles, 2, 4, 6, 7. There are 7 predefined roles here. So we have the master admin, which is a super admin, and then there's a backup admin, So for the restoration, there are 3 different roles here: a full support, a standard support, or limited support. So this is where I say that even for the restore itself, you can actually limit that the support personnel can only restore it to a alternate folder. So it will never overwrite the original. So this is something that can be done. Okay, and the other tool is just more of the setup for the SSO admin for setting up SSO and the audit. So in the audit itself, we are actually able to see who access the data, or who actually do a restoration, or even if you just do a navigation into the folder, okay, for the backup image itself, for the snapshot in the Arcserve backup, it was actually being logged. You can see it. Okay, so all you can the whoever that having the audit role will be able to actually see that. Okay, so here is the Arcserve SaaS backup dashboard. When you first log in itself, okay, this is the screen that you see at the portal. So you can have a very quick view of all your SaaS backup connector, whether it is M365, your Google Workspace, Salesforce, or D365. Okay, for the same connector, which is like the same M365 itself, you can actually create multiple so-called tasks, connector tasks. Okay, or you can say multiple backup job. Okay, to speed up the backup itself. Okay, using multiple connector because it's big, or to split up one for OneDrive, one for Team, and one for SharePoint, one for email, etc. So it's very much up to you. But all your connector, all your backup, you can see in this dashboard, and you'll be able to see the each of the connector itself. You'll be able to see the backup job status, the statistic of the connector itself, and even the recovery statistic. Okay, so whatever recovery that you have done, okay, it will all reflect as a statistic inside the dashboard. Okay, so if you have any recent the last 1 day, etc., you have the recovery job running, you will also see it inside the dashboard itself. So Arcserve SaaS backup itself is really very easy to configure, okay, compared with any other backup solution. You don't really need to be an expert, okay, to configure the backup. One of the example I like to share here is that I honestly don't really know D365 well. So I just create a backup task on my D365, and it works. Actually, I don't know how to get my D365. So that is how simple it is. Okay, the configuration are all very self-guided. I will show you a quick demo later on. So by default, once you have the authentication information provided, right, all the components are backup. You just save it and you will just automatically backup every 12 hours. Okay. So of course, you can choose to create a separate connector job for the same site. Like what I mentioned, an example of an M365, I can just disable my OneDrive, my SharePoint, my Team for one of the connector backup. And then I create another one just for my OneDrive, I create another one just for my SharePoint, etc. Or I can create multiple for my OneDrive, because my OneDrive is very big, my use, so I don't want to wait a long time for my first backup or this. So I split up the OneDrive backup based on user group. I can do that. Okay, so I can create multiple connector to speed up the backup. So within the Arcserve SaaS backup itself, right, you get an explorer view. Okay, so whatever backup you just throw in, navigate around, it look like your explorer. So it's quite easy and self-explanation to find something that you want to restore, because it is an explorer view. Okay, and you can just click at the button and at the timer at the top here. Then you will also able to actually say select a point in time which snapshot view that you actually want to see. Okay, because the system always show you the latest backup Explorer view. So if you need to change the point in time at, for example, I want to find a file, I drew it in, and then the file is not there. So obviously the file is not in the latest view itself. So I do not have to leave the Explorer view. I can just at the time choose the point in time, go to, for example, 3 weeks back, and then immediately you get the screen refresh, and then I'll be able to select my data. So that is how easy that you can navigate within the Arcserve SaaS Backup. Arcserve SaaS Backup have quite a couple of components, like the M365 itself, right, have a couple of components, okay, like Exchange Online, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Team. Sometimes some user may find a bit challenging to figure out how to restore using the Explorer view because they're still not that familiar. They want a wizard. Some users like wizard. Okay. For example, how to restore a team channel. Okay. So that is a restore wizard. So this wizard can actually guide you through the process of the entire restoration. Okay, it will guide you that the first thing, choose what you want to restore, then which snapshot that you want to restore from, then what type of data that you want to restore, for example, and then whether it's an email data, whether it's a SharePoint data, OneDrive or Team. And then once you select the data that you want to restore, and then you can say the target itself, okay, whether where you want to restore it to. Okay, for example, you want to restore it to override. It's an in-place restore. You want to restore to a new location. You want to restore it to a new site because this is a SharePoint. I want to restore it to a totally different site itself. Can I do that? Okay, so this is the wizard itself will guide you through that. Okay, so this wizard itself is also have an ability to do an import. Okay, so for example, one employee left, okay, and then you want to have the second employee, okay, that replacing your first employee to actually own and inherit all his data. Okay, then what you can do is whether the employee actually delete all his data or not, it's not your concern because all the data was being backed up. You can just simply do an import. Okay, so the same wizard itself allows you to import a user, for example, from one user account to another user account. Okay, you can tell them to actually import it under one separate root directory so that it can be easily identified that all this information comes from another user account. Okay. So this restore wizard handle both restore and import. So in additional to normal restore, you can also do a download. Okay, so the download itself can be downloaded into as a files, or it can even download. Let's say for your email or this, it can download as a PSD. Okay, and this is I think one of the very common question that user will actually request. Okay, what can you download into a PSD back to on-premise? Okay, because otherwise you got nothing, there's nothing for you to actually restore back to on-premise, right? This is the public link that I shared just now. Okay, it's quite a unique feature that rather than you as a IT manager, IT administrator, restore operator required to drill in and try to ask users, so which is the where is the files and the folders. What I can do is I can just mount choose the recovery point itself, okay, choose the folder or choose the site, the user account, and create it as a share link, share it to the user, okay. And this link itself, I can set a timing, okay. I can set a expire time, say it only going to last for 60 minutes, 1 hour. So the user have to finish whatever restore that he want to do, or whatever file they're trying to find, okay, within the 1 hour, because after that the link will get no longer be will become invalid. Of course, the link itself is also password protected, so it doesn't fall on the wrong hand. Okay, if they don't know the password, then they would not be able to use this public link. Okay, and based on the role base itself, I talked about the role base earlier on. You can actually say which are the admin or restore operator is able to create this link. Okay, so it gives you some security level to protect your data. Right to forget, right to be forget. That's RTBF. Okay, some organizations require meeting GDPR compliance. Okay, so they're asking whether certain data should not be able to restorable in the system. Okay, because you shouldn't be keeping the backup data. Okay, or that another example that you want to use the right to forget to be forgotten is that you actually suspecting that this user account, okay, or this backup itself at this point onward is actually, or this field or this folder are actually hit by viruses. You don't want to be accidentally restore from this account anymore, or that from this folder, or from this particular snapshot, this timing snapshot. Okay, so what we can do within the Arcserve backup itself, you can actually mark that that item, okay, at whichever level. It could be at the root level, it could be at the sub level itself. You mark it as right to be forgotten, and you can see that it's being dimmed off. Okay, so in future you cannot restore this item. Okay, of course, for the master admin itself, it can always take off the right to be forgotten label if that was mistakenly done. Okay, because it should not be classified under RTBF. You can actually undo it. Okay, remember that Arcserve backup, we store our data in one format. Okay, yeah, that's why it's non-changeable orders. So what we can say is we actually mark it as RTBF label. Okay. Job monitoring. So here is just a screenshot for job monitoring. You can actually set the duration, the time which that you want to see what happened to your backup or this thing. You can look at the backup type. You can look at the backup status. Quite standard. There is a message center. Okay, the message center itself will have all the information in terms of your attempt of restoration, what you have selected for restoration, and the result itself. Okay, and all this information itself can be okay. Sorry, that was a separate thing. Okay, so here is the audit log. Okay, so all the activity in the Arcserve SaaS itself is logged. The audit log not just limit to who actually do the login and the logout. It has all the user events, the connector events, backup restore events, and other miscellaneous events. So for example, the activity can be who is viewing the backup data area. So if I go into the system, I navigated the folder and look at the user subfolder. it actually reflects inside the audit log that I actually navigate down to that folder itself. Okay, so or even the email, navigate down to the email inbox and look at the inbox list, etc. Okay, the log is very detailed. Also, if let's say that as the administrator, I go to change a policy. Okay, so here is an example showing that a connector event. Okay, I change a policy of the retention period from unlimited to 11 months. This is actually logged inside the audit log. Okay, we don't see this in so-called or really see in the backup solution. Okay, you probably will be able to see, well, somebody actually save it, save the configuration again, but we don't know why. Okay, that's is it accidentally I just click the save button, but I actually didn't change anything. Okay, but with Arcserve backup, all this activity, if you change the setting, you will actually reflect it inside the audit log. Okay, so and all this audit log itself can be downloaded as a CSV file. Okay, because sometimes you need to analyze or research. It's much simpler that you can do it with your Excel using the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, just very quickly on the, because this session we are focusing on the M365 and the Google Workspace. So for M365 itself, the protection for M365 is very, very comprehensive. Practically every component you are able to back up and restore. Okay, Microsoft Teams probably is one that has the most challenge in the backup restore due to of the team channels itself. If people create team channels and you have the post and the reply, you have a public channel, you have private channels. Arcserve SaaS backup M365 able to handle all these requests. And for the SharePoint, very common question in terms of like, can I have a cross-site restore all this? Can I and more? And all this can be done. Okay, so those are the two very unique questions and that always come up in the user requirement. Can I do that? And most solutions can't do it, which Arcserve backup can. So for the Google Workspace, okay, so Google Workspace component in the Google Workspace are all included. This is the workload, the Gmail, your Google Drive, your Docs, the site itself, calendar, team drive, sheet and slides, tasks within the Google Workspace. Okay, I'm not that familiar with Google Workspace because I'm not using it, so I cannot give too much of example. You may be able to share with me in terms of what are the questions on the Google Workspace that you actually face. Okay, but the restoration itself, again, all is included: the in-place restore, the secure preview, the direct data download, shareable links, and others. Those backend infra, and then the job monitoring, the audit, and then how we kept the data, how we store the data in the data center is all applicable across all the solution, all the backup protected within the Arcserve backup. Okay. So what I'm going to do next, right? Okay, is that I'm going to show a quick demo, live demo for the SaaS backup. Okay, so this is the login interface. Okay, so let me log in as master admin. So as mentioned, this is your first dashboard view in which that you can look at. This is all your live backup. Okay, everything that's valid. So I have my Azure AD backup here. Okay, I have my Google Workspace. I have different Microsoft 365 backup, and I also have a Dynamic 365. This is one that I created. so if you are in Dynamics 365, then you probably would know how to handle it better than me. I only know how to create the backup. Okay. So at the connector here, okay, I also see some of the things in the is dimmed off. That's because all this is being scheduled for deletion. Once we actually enable something to delete it, because it's just a testing. It doesn't get deleted immediately. It actually get deleted in 2 weeks after that. Okay, because I actually done this one. I scheduled all this to delete yesterday. Okay. So from team here, I can just drill down, and then this is M365, so I can see my user account. And from here, I can actually go in. I'll be able, for this user account, I can see in his OneDrive. I can see the Outlook data, for example, and I can see all the folder itself, not just the default folder, but also the normal folder. Okay, so I mentioned this particular folder is already marked as right to be forgotten, so it will not be able to recover. Okay, so if I want to recover something, folder itself, I can just zoom in and find the file that I want to recover. Okay, or I can just choose the entire folder itself, and I can do a right click. I can say restore, and I can do a restore in place. I can restore to a new folder. Okay, so you see I got so many different folder in the account because I restore in the new folder. Okay, so when I do a restore itself, I can even say that I want to restore all the file version. If somehow you change a lot of version in that, the system can restore all the version into the folder for you. Okay, so I can just do a restore. So that's how quickly that you can actually do a navigation for restore. Okay, but of course, if let's say that you don't want to do a drill in for restoration itself, I can always say come in here and then say that, okay, I want to use the restore wizard instead. So from here, I can just come in and say, okay, I want to select a restore, then just do next. Which point in time, that snapshot that I want to do a restore, I can just choose whatever, which point in time itself. Oh, this is the one that I want to do a restore. Do next. What type of data area that I want to do a restore? I want to have a SharePoint. Okay, I want to look at my SharePoint, then do next. So which SharePoint site that I want to do? I want to have my demo SharePoint site itself. Okay, this is the one in which that I want to restore. Then just do next. I can say, okay, I want to do an in-place restore itself, which is referred to the same area. Okay, or I can just say, okay, so let me say I want to skip. Okay, so how do you want to handle a version? Restore all the versions and do next, and just do a restore. Okay, so for the SharePoint itself, right, say that rather than using I want to do the different site restore, for example. Okay, I can come into the connector here. I choose my SharePoint. Say that this is my demo site itself, and then when I do my restore from here, I do have a ability to actually restore to a different site. Okay, so I can say I want to restore it to a new site. Okay, so I can say that this one is my demo. Yeah. Okay, so the system actually create a total new site for me. Okay. And then when I do this restore, I can also say that I want the most recent file only, or I want the system to restore all my file version. Okay, and do the restore. So you can see the way how we actually navigate the usage, okay, of the Arcserve backup is pretty straightforward and very easy. Okay, but of course, before you actually having data to restore, the first thing that what you require is obviously that I need to create a backup first. Okay, so if I want to subscribe to Arcserve backup, do I really need an engineer that's very, very good to engage an engineer to assist me to do the to actually create a backup of this, or that as a partner, how easy is that I can actually assist my end user to create the so-called the backup itself. Okay, so what you can see here, I have an add connector here at my screen here, and from here I can just say what are the connector that I want to add. Okay, I can say I want to add 365 and connector. So first, let me sign in first. Sign in for my 365. Okay. A minute now. I got too many different sign in for my O365. Is going to cause me some problem. Let me do my portal sign separately to me. Okay. Let me log out from here first. Let me sign in, make sure I enter in a separate. Okay. Okay. Let's hope now it will not route back to my corporate account again. Okay, so now it's in correctly. Okay, so my connector here, you can see that the moment is you sign in, give the correct get the correct authentication in, then basically the system by default will enable for your Exchange backup, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your group team itself. So you don't even have to do anything, and you can just save it, and that's it. You have everything that's backup already. But if you have thousands of users, for example, let's say I have 500 users, and then the OneDrive, SharePoint are very big in the environment. I don't want the system to having one backup job and do all the four together. I want it to separate it. So I can actually say that this is my, okay, demo. Okay, this one is my Exchange. Okay. So, with that, I can tell the system that I actually I want to disable this backup. Okay. I just click here. I disable the backup here. Okay. So I disable all these three backup, and I only enable my Exchange backup. Okay. So even for individual Exchange backup itself, right? Okay. You can also see that I'll have the ability to actually say I can just select based on the user list. Okay, if say that I have 1,000 users, I probably want to really filter that A to D is one group, and then another 10 alphabet is another group, etc. So this is actually a method in which that we can really speed up the backup, especially your first time backup. Okay, for a start. Okay, so this is how we can actually do the granular configuration for our backup configuration. And of course, by default, the system will back up all your tasks, all your mail, all your contact, all your calendar, and even your in-place archive, okay, will get back up. Okay. And once you are done with it, then you just save it. Okay. By default, okay, the retention is set to unlimited for 1 year because our later we talk about this. I'll share with you a little bit on the SaaS backup subscription. Okay, so based on subscription, the first based on subscription, a one time it can be a 1 year subscription. That's why the default connection is actually 1 year. Okay, but of course, if you have more than if you already subscribe to our Arcserve backup for more than 1 year, and then when you do a renewal of this, you actually want the so-called retention period to actually extend to the 2nd year. So that is where you come back to us, and then that can be done internally at the backend. Okay, at the moment, if you want to do a setup, okay, because the maximum of the pre-contract itself is actually 1 year, so you will not be able to create more than 1 year, but you can reduce it. Okay, so I don't know why you want to reduce it, but sometimes user actually say that I just want to have this one backup temporarily, but after that it shouldn't be in the system. So that's why you want to reduce it. It can be done. Okay, so that's where you actually enable your retention. In terms of the scheduling time, okay, the system will create the backup. There are 2 backup in 24 hours at the interval of 12 hours. So if I create my backup now at 10:57, okay, or 11 o'clock, my first backup is going to run at 11 o'clock, for example, 11 a.m. My next backup will run at 11 p.m. That's how it works. Okay, so that's how the system actually space up your backup itself. All right, so that is for the how we actually create for the M365. Okay, similar things and have it for Google Workspace. Okay, so it's just for the sake of Google Workspace. I don't have a Google Workspace account, but this is from one of the colleagues. So he created this Google Workspace backup itself. So in the in here, once you draw in, then you can see the site itself, but there's no data in there. It's really a test account, so you can see the username, okay, and then his email, his Google Drive, his calendar, the Gmail, or the task that you want to do a backup or a restore. Okay, so basically this is actually how you can draw in for the Google Workspace. So you can see the navigation, whether it is Google Workspace, it's M365, it's actually the same. Okay, in fact, if I look at my D365, okay, so I use a wizard to create this D365. Okay, I just do next and somehow it works. That I actually have a D365 in my M365 in my so-called my Azure itself. All right, so after create it, then I just show that it has some data in there, and what I did is I just provide the authentication for my M365, and then the system did the backup. Okay, so that's how easy that it is that you can actually create a backup for a D365, and then obviously your user as a user for D365, you really know your sites for the D365, what are the things that you want to restore, etc. So you'll be able to just drill down and find out the data that you want for the restoration. Okay, so that's on the data itself. Okay, so basically for the let's go back to my M365. Okay, so if let's say that I want to restore help the user to restore some data, okay, but that's it's actually at the OneDrive itself, but basically he's not too sure where is the data itself. Then what I can do is I can just say, all right, I choose the folder that you want to restore, and then I can even click here, the snapshot, and say, because it said you want the data on April. Okay, so I go to my April, and the last day of the April, Saturday, I choose the point in time itself. Okay, so the snapshot now is at April 30th. Select it, and then it says share. Okay, so let me just copy it. So you are sharing this this link itself. Then I just say this link is going to be available for 60 minutes, 1 hour for the user. Then I say add a password. Okay, so I better can use my favorite password. Oh, cannot. Okay, so you need to meet some compliance in the password setting. Then just save it. Okay, so once I save it, the public link is available, and I just do a paste. Okay, so basically, because the user may not have a login, okay, I may have the system now show me a login because I'm actually in the login itself. But for the normal user, you will see that you don't have a login. Then this is how we actually make sure that it's not falling into a wrong hand by that it must have a password in order to access. Okay. So now you can see that basically from here, then he can actually zoom in and then look for the document itself, and he can just do a download for whatever this text preview. Then basically I can just do a download, and you download the whatever files that you want to restore. Okay, so that is for the share link. Okay, under public link. So this is quite a good feature, especially to assist user in terms of restoration. All right, the right to forget, again, for the data itself, if say that this particular the archive journal the folder itself, I suspect is really bad orders. Okay, I can just say assign to forget. Okay, so basically I can choose the timing itself, which snapshot of the backup is actually not good, or this thing also. Or I can just choose the other folder here, and just say give a comment. This is archive folder, back data. Okay. Then I can just assign it. So if I go to my right to forget here, I can see the basically those data which that I actually assigned to forget. Okay, so the one that I have here, I put a comment here. Okay, so archive folder, this is bad data. So if the next time, if let's say I need to undo it, okay, I can remove the RDBF tag here. So once I remove the label, the user will be able to restore the data. The message center. Here is the message center. Okay, so the message center, you can see that whether you will say that, okay, the status of the connector is powered by KPI Exchange. Okay, because it's I provide some invalid credentials just now. Okay, so the system actually capture it. So, but again, I actually do a restore just now. Okay, for the site. So basically, the method used is actually in place. So this is a message center that kept all the information that that we have performed within the Arcserve backup. Okay. The job monitoring, Okay, so job monitoring here, I can tell a system in which that I want to check what are the activity for the item restore, for example. Okay, and that this it can, from the job monitoring, I can tell that, well, the restoring is still going on for this item. It's about 96% done. Okay, so which is quite useful, especially if I have a very large restoration going on. At least I'll know where, at which stage am I. Okay, so that is the job monitoring. And one last one, which is the audit lock. Okay, so for the audit lock here, so you can see that the system actually show OS. I can see different area of the audit that what I want to see. Okay, and then whether I want to see those whether there are some denied activities that being done. You're trying to do something you're not supposed to, and it's also being logged. Okay, but I just see all action here. So in detail, you can actually see that the RTF assigned to a connector panel. Okay, and it's actually at the OneDrive here. Okay, so basically, I actually assign the RTPF on the journal folder. So whatever activities that you have done within the Arcserve itself is being logged. Okay, so the audit log for Arcserve itself is very, very comprehensive. So that also brings me to a point in which that the Azure backup. Okay, so we can create a Azure backup within our for the if you are Arcserve subscriber. Okay, so this is actually free at the moment under promotion. So I don't know when is it is going to change, but at least at the moment it's free. So if you change anything on the Azure on your AD, you add a user, you delete a user, you modify a group policy, etc. Basically, you'll be able to actually come into the connector here and do your restoration. Okay, this is a group. Let's look at the user. Okay, so I can come in here and then I can say, okay, I will be able to look at do whatever restoration that I need to, and I can also look at the point in time changes. Okay, so I can compare. Okay, basically from what is in the backup itself, right? By just shifting around my snapshot, I'll be able to see the state, what are the changes that was being done to my Azure AD. That's actually pretty cool. Okay, something that you won't be really able to find in most of the so-called AD backup. But Azure AD here, again, to create the connector is straightforward. I just add it in, and I need to sign as the AD admin in account, obviously. Oh, it doesn't give me problem again. Oh, I remember. I think mine cannot because my Azure account is subset of my corporate account, so I won't be able to. This one can. I thought I not. Anyway, let me just put my tenant. I add in my own backup. Tenant AP Azure AD. So again, you can do your granular. So let me just create. And I have my Azure AD backup. See, it was very straightforward. Okay. So I will have to wait for my backup to start. So this is just a very quick demo for the Arcserve backup. Arcserve backup itself, you'll be able to provide POC trial for our end user. Okay. So if you require a POC, you require a trial for your M365, for your Google Workspace, D365 or Salesforce. Okay, you can always reach out back to us. Actually, at the end of the this webinar, I put out a survey. Okay, but it's not a survey, but it's more of request to follow up. So if you need us to follow up with the POC or trial, or you want to see more in terms of details, for example, you really want to see all the different restoration for OneDrive, for team, etc. Okay, we can arrange a separate session and go through with you. Okay, so you just put it inside the respond back in the survey itself. Okay, before I close off the session, okay, just talk a little bit on the backup subscribe licensing. Arcserve SaaS backup itself is by subscription basis. So the way it charged is actually based on per user basis. So it go by the SaaS backup M365. For example, you have 500 users in M365 itself, but the one that you want to back up, right, is only 50, for example. Okay, so it could be 50 of your Exchange user, but if you want to back up your SharePoint at the same time or your team at the same time, then you have to make sure that it's also less than the 50, because the M365 backup consists of all the 4 of the OneDrive, the email, the OneDrive, the SharePoint, and the team. Okay, so that's for the SaaS backup M365. Then you have another, if you are using the Google Workspace, then you will pay for the Google Workspace. So for Dynamic 365, then it has a Dynamic 365, it's also per user, same as Salesforce, it's also per user. The Azure Active Directory backup at the moment is included and is free. Okay, so as mentioned, that is like a promotion at the moment, so we have no idea where it's going to change. Okay, but the Azure Active AD backup is quite cool to a certain extent. All right, there is the monthly subscription basis, but at the moment it's not ready yet. But the yearly subscription basis is definitely ready. Okay. All right. That's all I have for today. There's some question on my Q&A. Let me try to answer it first. Okay. What is the difference of Arcserve Cloud Backup for Office 365 and Arcserve SaaS Backup for Office 365? Okay. I would fully recommend you to we're going to end of life our cloud backup for O365. For existing customer, we're still maintaining it, but once we will be moving the customer to this new SaaS backup M365. Okay, I can guarantee you that none of our customer will ever regret it, because this is really so much better. Okay. If we do not know how to set up the backup restore for SharePoint, is there user guide to help to provide? You do. Okay. I hope that just now the way I show you, there's nothing. You just need to make sure that you use the admin account for the authentication and all get included. There's nothing for you to configure. So it was that simple. Okay. But yes, there help some. There's a user guide somewhere to say how do you actually create a connector. Does the Arcserve SaaS backup support PDPA? Okay. So that is the. So you are talking about your personal device. Unfortunately, not the personal device. Okay. Does Arcserve backup support O365 multi-factor authentication? Yes, it does support the multi-factor authentication. All right. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I'll end my session now. So if you have any, if you need to follow up, just respond back to the survey form itself. You follow up with more information and also for your POC request or the trial request or the demo request. Or at other times after your consideration, then you decide to reach us back, you can always reach us back at presalesap@arcserve.com. That's all I have, and thank you. I can end my session now. Okay, sorry. So you want to ask about the GDPR? Okay, Personal Data Protection Act. So that is your PDPA. Our as shared earlier on. Okay, basically, we do have the compliance, the compliance certification, and also with the right to be forget. Okay, you can set what are the data that fall under GDPR, and then you won't be able to restore back. Okay. All right. Okay, let me end my session now.